This podcast is based on the HCI's A Legacy of Leadership, Mentoring Your Successor webcast, sponsored by Saba and presented by Tom Fox, Director of the Center for Government Leadership at Partnership for Public Service. In this podcast, Tom explains mentoring versus coaching and shared how senior talent in the public sector can mentor others successfully.
We have a great research team here at the partnership that every couple of years, soon to be every year, produces a piece of research called The Best Places to Work in the Federal Government. It's a rank order list of federal agencies that tells us, who's doing a great job of managing their folks and who's really struggling. But as important as that information is, and as much as that may get some attention from the good government press, what I really found enlightening for our purposes is the data behind that, the information that tells us about the drivers of employee satisfaction and ultimately organizational performance. And the finding is basically something we all know intuitively from our own experience, but it's borne out in the data as well. Based on the most comprehensive survey of federal employees, we know that good leadership equals good government. Leadership is the number one driver of employee engagement by a substantial margin relative to the other drivers of workplace satisfaction. In other words, organizations with highly engaged employees outperform those agencies with less engaged employees. Sadly, though, it's the area where the government most lags other sectors, particularly the private sector. Despite all the challenges associated with the private sector this year, private sector employees still hold their leaders in higher regard than is the case in the government. Let me talk a little bit about how I'm defining mentoring and some of its general impact it might have. Mentoring is really a professional development relationship between someone who's more experienced with someone who's a little less experienced, so that you can build and develop that individual's skills, and they'll be prepared to assume a position of greater responsibility. What I think is interesting is this was a study that appeared in the Journal of Public Sector Human Resource Management. I can't remember the exact title right now, but they did this quantitative study to prove that simply providing classroom training to folks has some effectiveness in terms of building their managerial capacity. In this study, it's about 22%. Classroom training and coaching, mentoring would be included in that coaching, increases effectiveness by 88%. So that one-on-one attention is really critical to making sure that a leader becomes as effective as is possible. So what I want to do is just start with sort of an in-depth review of the mentoring program in our Excellence in Government Fellows program. And I do this because it's actually something that we've just recently added to the program, and it created a lot of structures around to try and enhance the benefits associated with the tailored learning that comes from one-on-one relationships. So in our Excellence in Government Fellows program, again, it's a year-long program that introduces participants to the executive core qualifications, both through coursework, assessments, one-on-one executive coaching, as well as action learning assignments. And really, again, as was the case, as I mentioned, with IBM, in that Fortune article, a lot of times you hear that action learning assignment is the most critical to an individual's growth and development. But no less critical is the mentoring that can occur. And again, this is part of a very structured program whereby each participant in the program completes a 360-degree assessment. They then receive some one-on-one coaching from an executive coach to interpret that assessment and set no more than 3 developmental goals for improving as a leader. And then after that point, we pair each participant with a mentor. This is a successful leader in either the public, private, or not-for-profit sector, but they have some sort of association with government and with public service. And then we kick off in a series of meetings where they first meet at a sort of just an informal cocktail reception to develop some rapport. And then they meet about once a month afterwards to discuss their goals or any other sorts of workplace issues that may be emerging. We document the entire process with a mentoring notebook. It essentially sets out the structure of the program, provides some common ground in terms of expectations, as well as a set of questions that either the mentor or the protege can pose to one another to have productive conversations over time. It's simply a starting point to help facilitate a dialogue, but it is a useful structure for folks to use and take notes in over time. One of the key challenges we've had to confront, however, is really distinguishing coaching versus mentoring. And so we've tried to clarify that for everyone involved, our coaches, our mentors, and our participants. So the coaches in our program not only provide executive coaching, but also lead the class seminars in cohorts of about 25 or 30 folks. They're trained and certified to interpret 360-degree assessments, and they help the fellows develop their leadership goals. And they can provide coaching based on observations they make throughout the program. Mentors, on the other hand, provide some sort of unbiased counsel to the participants. They don't see those day-to-day interactions, and so have an opportunity to really take the fellow and their views on the best ways to help them. So they really provide advice. They serve as a sounding board. In the best of circumstances, they really operate as a catalyst, encouraging the participants to really think more creatively, more broadly about how they can be most effective in their current jobs and grow into more substantial jobs over time. They also have an opportunity to share some personal experience, which I think is a real great value that coaches sometimes don't provide. Depending upon the coaching style and technique, a coach may not get into their own personal experience, but we found that that's one of the great benefits of having a mentor. They've been there, they've done that, and they can provide advice and counsel based on what worked or what didn't work. Sometimes those are the best learning opportunities out there. And again, they can serve as a sounding board, not only as it relates to the participants' long-term coaching and professional development goals, but also as it relates to anything that may be emerging at any point. Sometimes it's the day-to-day stuff that gets most in our way and not the long-term learning goals. We also have a set of commitments that we expect our mentors to perform. The mentors, again, have to attend a short training program. They have to meet with their proteges at least once a month for an hour and maybe two based on schedules. They have to be willing to share their experiences willingly, provide open and candid feedback. They should be taking notes during each conversation so that before the next meeting they have an opportunity to refresh their thinking and their conversations. And they have to be willing to keep their conversations confidential and really encourage their fellows to test things on the job. We talked a lot about those things, but this is the type of expectations that we lay out very clearly for the mentors in our program. And that's actually borne out in the results of our program as well. A lot of the qualitative feedback we get from our participants is that it really helps tailor their developmental experience around their job requirements and their professional goals. Again, sort of the classroom training covers the executive core qualifications. The action learning focuses on how to translate those ideas into actions on the job. But the mentoring provides for consistent one-on-one attention around any specific goals that folks have to develop over time. It provides opportunities to discuss topics that aren't covered in the formal program or may be too sensitive to share with the group. There may be some things that are personally embarrassing or simply just difficult for those who are more introverted to talk about in front of a group. Well, mentoring provides folks like that the perfect opportunity for soliciting feedback and really considering their own sort of strengths and weaknesses. But that's not to say it doesn't reinforce the lessons from the formal program. It does. It gives mentors and proteges an opportunity to really delve into a little more depth some of the things that are covered at a very general level in the course room section, particularly if it's an area of real weakness for that individual. And then last but not least, it provides an opportunity for successful executives to support rising federal leaders. Before we began this program, we thought, boy, it's going to be difficult to ask a set of executives to participate in this. They're too busy already. There's no way that they're going to want to find an additional hour or two in any month to mentor and cultivate the next generation of leadership talent. And in fact, our experience proves that that was a false assumption. In fact, the very best leaders, the leaders you want participating in a mentoring program, are thirsty for these sorts of opportunities.